Christian parenting.
Are you worried about how much time your son or daughter spends playing video games? We're going to talk about this important issue today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Hi, Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. Before we jump in today to talk about this subject of video games and continue our interview with Drew Dixon, I just want to say thanks and hi to all the kids that are listening right now. As we meet people around the country, even around the world who listen to Family Vision, so many people tell us that they listen with their kids. They listen with their kids in the car or while getting ready in the morning. So boys and girls listening to Family Vision, we are so glad that you are here. And if there are ways that we can support you, ways that we can pray for you, your parents can send us prayer requests for your family, or just let us know that you're listening. You can email us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. That's podcast@visionaryfam.com. All right, well, in last week's episode, we began this conversation talking about video games. It is the holidays right now, and there's cold weather outside. And I think for a lot of families, that just means more inside time, inside games, more screens, and for lots of us, more video games. Are video games having a positive or negative impact on your family? Moms and dads, how are we doing engaging with our kids? For a lot of them, this is a big part of their life. It's a big thing that they are interested in. So we're going to continue this conversation, this interview with Drew Dixon. Drew is the author of a book, Know Thy Gamer. I love that title. And his ministry is even a better title, Love Thy Nerd. As a nerd boy growing up, I resonate with that. So let's get right to it. Part 2 of my interview with Drew Dixon, talking about this whole subject of video games. If a parent has a kid that just is inclined to video games, technology, they're a gamer, they want the gizmos, and the parent just has no interest whatsoever in that, like they personally don't like it, they're not into tech, they've never played a video game in their life, how can a parent like bridge that gap?
The first and perhaps most important thing to do is, like, if they're already playing video games, the first thing you can do, it's really easy, is just start asking questions. Like, why do you like this game? What's it about? And ask those questions like genuinely and curiously, not like, why do you like this? What's wrong with you? Right? But ask them genuinely, because the purpose God has given us as parents is to love our children. Our goal is to love them and raise them up in the nurture and admonition of Christ. We want to point them to Jesus. And so a big part of doing that is building a relationship with them. So just ask questions, get to know them. We should be students of our own children, get to know what makes them tick. But then if you're willing, get in the game with them, play with them. Very few things will endear your children to them more than like doing things that they love to do with them. So often we want our kids to get on board with our hobbies. Like I did this with mountain biking. I'm also a big mountain biker. And so I bought mountain bikes for my kids and I drugged them to the trails, and they liked it because it's time with dad, and like time with dad is always special. But after a while, it was like I had to admit to myself, this is not their thing. It really endears them to me when I'll play. I don't like Roblox. I like video games, but I don't like Roblox. But Roblox is their thing. And the few occasions that I take to play Roblox with them is so special to them. You may think like, oh, I'm going to get destroyed, or it's not going to be any fun for me. And maybe it won't be fun for you, but I think we're supposed to humble ourselves, right? In the way that we love people.
I confess, I can only handle so much Super Smash because I just get obliterated, and my competitive streak just I have to say I'm done.
Yeah,
because I always fall off the edge in the game. Like I didn't even get pounded because I could even handle that. Like it was a self-inflicted defeat, which is even worse. Okay, Drew, mom comes to you and mom says the only thing my fifth grader wants to do is play video games. They are sad or angry if they're not playing video games. They say they're bored And the only way I can make them quote unquote happy is by saying, okay, you can play. How would you counsel me?
Don't give up and keep up the good fight. Like, people who are in that situation, I think, are tempted to do one of two things, both of which I think are unhealthy. The temptation is to either like get rid of all the video games, remove every video game from your house, or to just finally give up and say, you want video games, play them as much as you want. I tell a story about this in the book of a friend of mine who actually broke his kid's handheld video game system, just chunked it on the floor because he's so mad about his kid's obsession with video games. I think those are both really unhealthy approaches, because you might think, oh, my kid, if I just let them play as much as they want, they'll finally get sick of playing video games and find something else to do. That often doesn't happen because children's brains are not fully developed. And so they're not ready to build proper boundaries for themselves. Kids are bad about setting limits, healthy limits for themselves. We're, as human beings, we're bad at setting healthy limits for ourselves. And so we need help. Our kids need help. They need you to set boundaries. They need you to set limits. They need you to create structures that are going to promote their health and well-being, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And so there is a way to cultivate, I think. It takes work. It takes patience. It's going to take time, but there's a way to help our children cultivate a responsible, healthy relationship with games. And that's what we want to shoot for.
What if we've got, let's take an 8th grade boy, and their proclivity is toward games that are unhealthy, destructive, demonic, grotesquely violent. So every time you are at a department store or whatever, or going up to Christmas time and you're saying, hey, I'd like to get you a game, like the only titles they give are games that you have significant concerns about. How could you, that's also a boundary issue, right? That's not just time of games, that's type of games. So how can a parent help walk that journey and redirect if needed on even choice of games?
Sure. I say in my book that you need to have rules in your home around video games and screen time in general. The vast majority of kids need boundaries. And so what I encourage in the book is to make your rules clear, collaborative, and written down. Your rules should not be complicated. You know, something you can write on like a single piece of paper or less. You can explain it in 60 seconds or less. If the rules are so complicated that the kids are accidentally breaking them, then you made it too complicated. Like you can play on Friday, but not on Saturday. And you can't, don't make it simple. And then make it collaborative. So I actually think it's really important that we involve kids in the process of creating rules. Like ask them, what do you think is appropriate? What kind of time constraints? What types of games? And you'd be surprised that most kids know that they need boundaries. And I'm not at all suggesting that you let them set the rules. You should go into that discussion kind of knowing if you're married, go into that situation with your spouse with a plan. Here's what we'd like the limits to be in terms of time. Here's the kind of rating limits or content limits we'd like to set as parents. Go in with a plan, but then ask them and let them feel like they're a part of setting those rules. Because if they're involved in the process, they'll be more likely to respect those rules when you lay them down, because they feel like they have a voice. Also, I think I personally want to raise my kids to follow. I want to raise Jesus followers. I don't want to raise Pharisees that just know rules and keep rules. That's not how we pursue Jesus. That's not how we pursue God. So it's really important to me that I do that hard work of like explaining why we're laying down the rules that we're laying down. Because I want my kids to know that this is rooted in care, that this is rooted in love. And listen, there's some of you out there that are going to set down you're going to collaborate, you're going to have this meeting and like involve your kids and set down these rules, and your kids are still going to be like, I hate you, right? When you lay down the rules, because they're not going to like them initially, but you still have to keep trying. You still have to keep trying to explain, hey, here's why we're doing this. Here's why I'm worried about the types of games you're playing, or here's why I'm worried about the amount of time you want to spend playing. We have those conversations a lot with our kids, and I get worn out by it. after a while, I wanted to just be like, I'm done. We're shutting this stuff down. You're not playing it anymore. But I think it's more important that we have those hard conversations and persevere, and talking to them about these things so that we can point them to Jesus.
I would totally agree with two of the things you just said. One is collaborating and inviting input from our kids into these rules. Just because you're collaborating with your child, it doesn't mean you're caving, or it doesn't mean you're
right,
not
exactly
parent, right? That you're actually working with them on these things. And I think also this casting vision piece of, here's why I don't want you playing these gruesome games. Here's why I don't want you to playing these games with sexual content. Like, it's because I want your heart to be following Christ. I want you to learn how to treat women well, and this game doesn't, or,
yeah, that's
whatever.
Great point, because there is a lot of there's a lot of misogyny in video games. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we get frustrated by, rightly so, we get frustrated by the immoral content in video games, but we fail to recognize that there's an opportunity there to have important conversations. Right. If you're not teaching your son how to think about and treat and speak about women, other people are, and he's going to learn how to do that in ways that are not healthy. So as frustrating as some of these conversations we have to have are, they're actually really important. And in a way, I'm glad that the games my kids ask to play sometimes force me to then have to have hard conversations, because those are important conversations.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple super practical questions, and we're going to land the plane.
Cool.
Give parents a couple of games or game families that they should stay away from, period. Like,
sure.
Hey, these titles, these game families, if you're a Christian family, you want to keep these on the off list. What would you put on?
Yeah, I'm probably the most obvious answer to that is something like the Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, pretty much everything you're asked to do in those games is criminal. It sort of celebrates that kind of activity. That would be the biggest one. There's quite a few games nowadays with pretty sexually explicit content. So like the Witcher series is an example of that. But there's a lot of games that are on the margins, right? In the gray area of like, is this okay? Is it not? Like, is Fortnite okay for my 12-year-old or not? That's a more complicated question. So for those types of parents, I would say esrb.org is a great resource, but also I really like Common Sense Media. It's not a Christian site, but it's got very detailed reviews of all kinds of media, including video games. And there's parent reviews too. There will be a parent that writes a review that says, hey, I've got a 13-year-old boy. We played Fortnite together. Here's what I thought about it. So you kind of get both of those perspectives of like critical, detailed reviews of, hey, here's what's in this game. Not just whether it's good, but the kind of like moral content or whatever. And so you get a very clear picture by reading. While
we're on Fortnite, give me a 30-second. Here's a couple pros. Here's a couple cons. Because obviously it's a super popular game and a lot of kids are asking to play it.
Yeah. So the pros are creative problem solving and team building. So it's a great game for like learning to work together. Usually you're playing with other friends, playing with people. And when you're playing with friends, you're figuring out how to work together, solve problems, communicate. So there is violence in it, but it's not graphic. There's no blood and gore. And it doesn't really celebrate violence in the way that a lot of games do. Not in the same way. The cons to me with Fortnite are the way its in-game economy store, its in-game store works. So the more you play, the more you earn V-Bucks, which then you can go and spend in the in-game store to buy outfits, dances that your character does, call outs that your character can do, all these things that sort of differentiate your character as you play. And for some people listening, they're like, why do people care about that? But kids really do. And it's a thing that keeps them coming back again and again and again, because you can either keep playing every day to earn V-Bucks, and there's a limit of what you can earn in a day, or you can go spend real money in the store to buy V-Bucks. In my opinion, V-Bucks in the big scheme of things are not worth a whole lot, right? Like they don't have any value. And so it's the way Fortnite's designed irritates a lot of parents because their kids are always going to them asking for money. And it also keeps them coming back playing. I want my kids to play video games for intrinsic rewards, like things like community, like building friendships with people, creative problem solving, all those sort of like the joy of winning a game because you worked hard and learned a lesson or whatever, rather than for V-Bucks, which is an extrinsic reward, which doesn't have a whole lot of value.
Yeah,
and
that's a great insight. Give us a couple games or families of games that if parents are online this Christmas or they are in that department store, some titles that, hey, your family might really enjoy these and they're pretty clean.
A lot of the first party games that Nintendo makes. So the games that like Nintendo itself designs and publishes, a lot of them are pretty family friendly, and they're really incredibly creative and just a joy to play. So my kids and I still play a lot of Mario Kart together. Super Mario Odyssey, a lot of things on the Nintendo Switch are great for kids and families. My kids and I have been playing a lot of Fall Guys lately, which is like a big, goofy obstacle course game. You're just like running these silly characters through obstacle courses, and it's really funny and goofy.
Is that on the Switch, or is that only online, like PC based?
It's on the Switch too. Yep, that's where we have it. And now it does have a lot of those free to play elements like outfits and things, and it has its own in-game store. And there's this whole slew of free to play games that sounds great because they're free, but they a lot of them have those like elements that try to get kids coming back again and again. Things like loot boxes, random rewards, sort of like the idea of slot machines. You'll keep pulling that lever more and more if there's the chance, it's super rare, but the chance that you could win a new car, right? And so random rewards, psychologists have found, are far more effective in getting us to come back and do a particular behavior than if we know exactly what the reward is. When we play Fall Guys, we play together primarily. I primarily play with my kids because I don't want them like begging me for money to buy more outfits or whatever. And I also don't want that to be the reason that they play all the time.
You need to save your money for their real outfits and not just their skins in the video game. Is that the general theme there?
Yeah, those cost plenty, the real ones that they have to wear to church and school and life. So
that's great. Drew, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us. Tell everyone how they can get this book, how they can dig deeper just into your ministry, because all of us are struggling with this. And any parent, and I know it's boys and girls, trying to navigate their phone, the games on the console, games at their kids' friends' houses. So how can people stay in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, and when you asked about games, there's another resource I want to point people to. It's taminggaming.com. I don't want to forget to mention that because it's super helpful. There's a whole database of family-friendly games. You can search by all different kinds of categories. You can even search for games that rule out loot boxes, which are those random rewards that I talked about. So you can make sure you only get a list of games that don't have loot boxes in them. It's a really cool site. Anyway, that said, my Twitter is _Drew Dixon. Go check out lovethiner.com. That's the website of the ministry I co-founded. My book is Know Thy Gamer. The ministry that I co-founded is called Love Thy Nerd, and it's lovethiner.com. So those are two.
That's great. Well, we want to thank you for being a part of our conversation today and being on the Family Vision podcast. Folks, you can always reach out to me and Amy with prayer needs for your family just by emailing us at podcast@visionaryfam.com, podcast@visionaryfam.com. And I hope you heard, wrapped through Drew's and my conversation, it's really ultimately not about video games today. It's about helping our kids follow Jesus. And Amy's in my book, Visionary Parenting, is going to be your biblical parenting 101 game plan for just having our hearts turned to our kids, building a heart-connected relationship with our children to help them build a love relationship with Jesus. So we look forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.